When I went to Africa, some of my friends in Los Angeles found out that I was going to film big game hunting. A lot of them had really emotional, in some cases like hostile reactions to that, and said, I can't believe you're going to film a bunch of rich assholes kill endangered species. And I was like, well, you can't kill endangered species, that's poaching. But in their mind, there was no difference. You know, I saw the good, the bad, and the ugly. And in a very short amount of time, while I didn't very often have a gun in my hand, I don't really think that matters, because you're hunting. And I was right behind the shoulder of every single person. So I started asking questions. We're like, well, why don't we invite those people in here? Felt like there was some major communication gaps between what hunting truly is and how it plays a role in conservation and how it's perceived in the public.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I am very excited to welcome possibly the greatest wildlife photographer in the hunting business and one of the most amazing writers that I've ever read, and my friend, the great Tyler Sharp.
Thank you for that intro.
You,
wow.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. It's good to be here. It's been too long, and we got some good stories to tell.
So, Tyler, you're kind of a unique guy. I've known you for a very long time. We had the opportunity. We worked with other outdoor shows, and we got to document hunting and fishing trips all around the world. And you are the editor-in-chief of Modern Huntsman Magazine. And in the years that I have been around, I guess, these publications and shows, you are the best outdoor writer that I've seen. And you are the best wildlife photographer that I've seen. And so I wanted to bring you on because I just don't think there's anybody else that produces art in a way that you do in the outdoor space. And why don't you tell people a little bit about how you got started?
Sure.
And you have you're a traditional Texas guy.
Sure.
And but you had kind of a different route into this industry.
Yeah. Well, thank you for all of those kind words. I'm not sure all of that's true, but I'll do my best. So yeah, like you said, I grew up in Texas, combination between Austin and Grapevine, and my mother's from Nocona, Texas, which is a very famous boot making town, baseball glove making town, last place in America that hand makes baseball gloves in Nocona. So my grandpa was a cowboy, grew up very traditional Western, used to do a lot of work with the Texas Historical Commission, and I was always into art and drawing and painting and things like that. But really, when I was about 17, Photoshop and Max, they started to have a digital media class at my high school, and I started to get into it, won some money in some competitions, and was like, maybe this is something I should think about, and was always planning on going to UT. I was always going to go to Austin, and then one summer we were in Wyoming at a ranch out there in Du Bois, and basically one of the wranglers saw some of my work and said, did you ever think about going to USC, Southern California? And I was like, no, I never did, but maybe I should. And my parents were both like, damn it. And long story short, ended up getting this idea in my head that I wanted to go to Los Angeles and leave Texas and go explore, new areas. And I would say that of the California institutions, USC is probably the most conservative, right? It's kind of like a West Coast SMU. Not that I knew that or even what that meant, but went there and obviously expanded my horizons. Got really into photography, did a lot. They have an amazing film school there. So I got exposed to all this very high level filmmaking and photography. And I was in Los Angeles, but I spent a lot of my time trying to get out of the city, going to Sequoia or Joshua Tree or Death Valley or wherever. And that's, I think that kind of what pushed me into the seeking nature wildlife path. And, I didn't really know what I was going to do because the school I was in was more focused on like studio art, and I'm not a studio artist. And I remember just happenstance, my dad used to run a store in Las Colinas that did screen printing and embroidery and large format banners and vehicle wraps. And I helped set up all the equipment and ran that company. And it was next door to a home video place called You Edit Video.
Okay.
And the owner of a safari company came in there with a bunch of this footage from Tanzania.
A hunting safari company.
Hunting safari company, looking for someone to help them make videos for their clients. And my dad just happened to be standing there. And he's like, well, my son's about to graduate from USC. Maybe you should hire him. And the guy was like, okay. So I get a call from my dad and it's like, hey, T, I sent that check, or like, we're going to come out for graduation. And I think I might've got you an opportunity in Tanzania when you graduate. So I followed up with this guy, and long story short, managed to land this gig. And I remember when my mother, whose name is Barbie Lee, Barbie called me. She said, "Tyler, do you have a job yet? Do you know what you're gonna do when you graduate?" I said, "Well, Mom, actually, I got a job in Africa." And there was this pause, and she goes, "Does it have benefits?" And I said, "Well, the benefits going to Africa, So graduated from USC, moved back to Grapevine, sold a bunch of my stuff, bought some safari gear, and went to central Tanzania in what is now all part of Ruaha National Park, but it was the Usangu Game Reserve, and lived in the bush for 5 months, and got bit and chased and scratched by just about everything there, and feel like I went there a boy and came back a man, because you're this was before iPhones, this was before anything. You were in the middle of nowhere. And that really just changed my life, and I just became obsessed with Africa. And long story short, the company that I was working for at the time, kind of sketchy, didn't pay me, visa expired, never got my work permit, had to bribe my way out of customs, but came back with this incredible body of work, and went to Dallas Safari Club in 2007, basically just trying to find a way to get back to Africa. And I met a mutual friend of ours, Michelle Montiakis, and he kind of took me under his wing and actually introduced me to your dad. And said, "This young man is a professional photographer. You should take him with you to Africa." And Larry was like, "All right, okay, all right," And this led to that.
Just so everybody, let everyone in. My dad is an Africa addict. He's in Africa right now. I think it's his third trip. And so he loves two things. He loves Africa and video. And so
maybe horses is the third.
Oh yeah.
I remember asking your dad one time, "Larry, how many horses do you have?" And he goes, "Well, if you know how many horses you got, you ain't got very many."
Yeah.
Like, okay, fair enough. But and this sort of led to that, and obviously started filming some outdoor shows. And I think I went to 30 countries in 3 years during that time period, all over the world. And I was taking pictures on my own, just observing and learning. And I didn't really grow up hunting. I mean, I had gone on maybe a few duck hunts with my dad when he was like a VP of Pepsi, So they were like,
but you've done a lot now.
Yeah. So I just mean growing up, I think I shot one pheasant when I was 12 or something like that, and I still have that mount. And it was memorable. But my dad's not really an outdoorsman, so I was never shown or taught or really taken many places. So I was just thrown into the belly of the beast, right? And didn't really, when I went to Africa, or actually before I went, and some of my friends in Los Angeles found out that I was going to film big game hunting, a lot of them had really emotional, in some cases like hostile reactions to that. And said, "I can't believe you're going to film a bunch of rich assholes kill endangered species." And I was like, "Well, you can't kill endangered species. That's poaching." But in their mind, there was no difference. So I hadn't been, so I didn't know how to defend myself. I didn't know how to even talk about it. So as I went into this chapter of global travel and documenting international hunting, I went to it with very open eyes, with no prior experience, and really just as an observer, watching, how does this work? What do I like? What do I not like? Is that person's, can I believe what they're saying? Or is that person full of shit? Or do they say they're conservationists and they're not? Are they breaking the rules? Are they not breaking the rules? Do those rules matter? And so I think that was almost a journalistic, standpoint. But at the same time, there's a code of ethics there, right? You can't really bite the hand that gave you the opportunity in terms of the hunting industry, but just started to see some things. I saw the good, the bad, and the ugly, and in a very short amount of time, and didn't really know what to think about all of it. And so that all that experience sort of, just stewed over time, and started to form my own opinions and my own perspective on how I think maybe it could be potentially better in some cases. Not that I know better than anybody.
Every guy that likes hunting has an opinion on how it should go.
Sure. And so, I think that while I didn't very often have a gun in my hand, I don't really think that matters, because you're hunting, and I was right behind the shoulder of every single person.
But to be clear, you yourself have hunted and shot animals everywhere. And so you're not just behind the camera. And what's interesting about what you've done and very effectively is I think that experience at USC kind of got you aware of kind of the battle that we have in trying to preserve wildlife and who you have to communicate and how you got to convince the hard sells, which I think is really admirable that in your career that you're not preaching to the choir. You don't save any souls preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
What you're doing is you're going after that hard market. You're going after like even the upper middle class, the intellectual class, and using art and story to illustrate the beauty of this and how important it is. And I, like you, have faced a lot of headwinds from being involved in this for a long time, and how you were accused of being involved in poaching happened to me once, and it's one of my favorite moments of witnessing instant karma.
Yeah.
So I was invited to a dinner of mixed company, and I went there with my date. And as soon as I sit down, there's a woman there, and she's a big, tall brute of a woman, and her name was Riz. And so I sit down and I'm introducing myself, and Riz says, "Oh, I know who you are," because this is like when you and I were filming stuff all over the world and producing shows. So, anyways, she says, "I know who you are, and I know what poaching is, and I know what you've been doing." And I said the same thing. I was like, "I don't poach." I was like, "I go on illegal hunts." So this lady just tears into me, calls me everything but a white man, just chews me up.
Yep.
And so I tell my date, and she's running the dinner for everyone else. And I said, "I'm going to go ahead and bow out. You know, I'm not going to sit here and run everyone's meal just because this lady doesn't like me." And so I'm leaving, I'm saying goodbye. And this woman goes to the bathroom. And as she goes to the bathroom, there's something going on in there, like two men fighting or something going on. And as she approaches the bathroom door, one of those guys kicks the door open with full force, like the SWAT team entering the freaking house, and blast her in the face. And she dropped like she got hit with a 300 Win Mag and went down. And I don't know. There was some satisfaction there. I ain't gonna lie. I was like, we were all thinking it, honey. So yeah, it's a difficult thing because there is this belief out there that people have that's been propagated that it's all illegal. Well, I think that given your experience, I think that's what makes you the right guy to do that.
Yeah, maybe. And I think that also just serendipitously, even though that word may be overused right now, my background in psychology and martial arts and philosophy and, you know, the whole yielding to other people's energy and not fighting fire with fire kind of thing, I think it's been disarming in some cases when I don't engage in, you know, intense debate. I'll start asking questions and try to actually find common ground. And, oh, that's interesting. Well, tell me a little bit more about that. Well, hey, let me tell you about this thing where I was there and had this experience that's similar to that. And so I think that my observation through the years of being in you know, some of the upper echelon rooms of the hunting industry and hunting organizations, there's a lot of passion, there's a lot of commitment and desire to improve the situation or improve the public standing. But at the end of the day, it was a lot of members of the same club in a room agreeing with each other. Yeah. And when that conversation left the room, it ceased to be productive. So I started asking questions. We're like, well, why don't we invite those people in here? Or why don't we go meet them where they're at? And that was kind of the thought and ultimately what became Modern Huntsman, is that I felt like there was some major communication gaps between what hunting truly is and how it plays a role in conservation and how it's perceived in the public, right? And that's twofold. One, just like my friends in Los Angeles, a lot of them have, you know, skewed perspectives because of what they've seen in news.
They've been indoctrinated.
Media. Yeah.
We're, you know, in some way we're all indoctrinated. Sure. And we're just arguing over who the bigger fool is. But we do know that through conservation, it's so backed by science.
Yeah.
And then we've seen it. Like if you look at the return of the bighorn sheep, if you look at the return of wild turkeys, white-tailed deer, elephants in Africa, hunting and conservation management, it's the proof's in the pudding. It's there, and people are just not aware of it.
True. I think it's also a problem of how the information is being presented.
Absolutely.
And that's where I see to be the major issue is that a lot of times, there's been the slogans used, hunting is conservation. Well, and it's said in this authoritative, matter-of-fact tone. That's not convincing anyone, right? That's just laying it down on the table. And so I think it's harder to meet someone where they're at, right? And I found that if you validate someone's emotions or their stance or their background, is a lot more productive in terms of if we look at the goal of what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. So we're not going to convince them with kill shots.
No,
we're not going to convince them with pictures, trophy photos.
No,
and I think that's really interesting. That I don't know that you saw that. I remember long ago how some of these real wealthy clients will spend forever on their kill shots, but they won't write a story about what happened.
Yeah.
And you journaled. You've never stopped journaling, have you?
No. Yeah.
You journaled all those hunts and documented it, and I guess that helped you maintain your writing skill before you started writing professionally again, right?
Yeah, and I think that one of the turning points for me was after we were in Pakistan and we had that crazy experience that maybe we can talk about later. And I came back and I was trying to tell my mom about what that trip was like.
Yeah.
And I found myself not dumbing it down, but distilling it in a way that was going to be easy for her to understand. And I don't mean that as any sort of knock on her intelligence or anything like that, but it's like you go into an art gallery, if there's this like highbrow avant-garde thing and you just don't get it.
Yeah.
So I say this every time. I don't remember who said this. I don't know if it was Plato or Socrates or Aristotle, but it basically is what good is wisdom if the common person can't understand it?
Absolutely.
And so that's kind of the lens I started applying to telling these stories is I need to be able to tell this in a way that my mom in Nacona, Texas can understand. Distill those principles. And so I think that in the same way with hunting and with hunting's role in conservation, you have to be able to communicate that in a way that's interesting, but also people can understand and maybe even feel inspired by. Right? And that's really through those journal experiences, I started to write in a way that I would tell a story.
Yeah.
Because if you start getting fancy and getting out the thesaurus and all of a sudden you're using a word and they have to be like, I don't know what that word means.
Yeah.
And I'll say that all the time. People will be on a call and somebody will say somewhere, I'm like, hey, I actually don't know what that word means.
Yeah. Well, I think to kind of talk about like this kind of stuff. So Tyler and I, we went a lot of countries, and we were filming outdoor shows and environmental shots for shows. We ended up in 2008 in Pakistan, and a very difficult time. Just to set the backdrop. No, it was 2009. 2009. And so Obama had just got into office and had begun the drone strikes. And if you aren't familiar with what ended up happening, and we didn't know this at the time, most of the drone strikes were killing civilians. And so Pakistan was forced to cooperate in the war on terror. They were told that if they didn't cooperate, they'd be bombed to the Stone Age. And so even though they cooperated it didn't mean that they did so willingly. So Americans were not very well received. We were out in the countryside. People were wonderful to us, but we go there and, we had some really fun experiences when I'll get into in just a second. But what happened is we were staying at a hotel and we're in Lahore. We were in Lahore.
It was Lahore.
And 1 kilometer away from our hotel, terrorists attack the Sri Lankan cricket team.
Yep.
And so before we had gone, they had, we're reading the State Department advisory.
We woke up and just knew something had happened.
Yeah.
We looked at each other. We were like, this feels weird.
And so before we had left, we're in traditional dressed. We got beards because they told us to, and you wanted to fit in. And Tyler can look like someone from anywhere. Me, not as much. And so this was a terrible attack. Guns fired, lots of injuries, casualties, and so Tyler and I, we get in a taxi cab. And we get caught up in the security sweep. And there are some very angry Pakistani officials that are very well armed that stopped us, and it was not fun. You want to?
Yeah. So a lot of people have probably seen the famous National Geographic portrait of the Afghani girl that Steve McCurry took with the beautiful light eyes. So that tribe is called the Pathan. The Pathan tribe is kind of the border of Pakistan and Afghanistan. And apparently one of the gunmen in that shoot was a Pathan.
And they're descendants of Alexander's army. So they have some European-like features.
So I fit the description of one of these gunmen. Green eyes, dark hair. We're wearing the shalwar kameez. And it wasn't a taxi cab. It was we had that driver.
Oh, is that what it was?
And we had a day of activities planned. We were going to go to the museum. We were going to do this. And we had a conversation. We were like, this is sketchy. We don't know if we should go. And our guide or driver, or whatever, said, well, honestly, it's safer after a terrorist attack because there's an increased military and police presence. And we were like, okay, no problem. Let's go. So we start driving, and we're on the Grand Silk Road there, the Grand Trunk Road, whatever it was called. And we make it through the mess of donkeys jumping on cars. And I was filming out the window. We both had like handy cams, and we get out of there, and this police car like runs us down. And I mean, just about does the like James Bond action movie push off the road. So we get off the road, guns drawn, screaming at us in Urdu to get out of the car.
Yeah.
And particularly me, we both had our hands up, but they're pointing guns at my head. And, we're like, Americans, and, get our passports out. And they're like, hey,
Yeah.
And so, it was, I thought we were about to get executed.
We decided it was time to leave Pakistan.
Yeah.
And so we look at, we pull up, what flights we can get out of that town. And we're looking, where can we go? And we're like, we can go to Egypt. So we went to Egypt, and which was an amazing experience. I gotta say, the pyramids are worth the price of admission.
Agreed.
And so, Tyler, neither one of us were like, I don't know, that we'd had such time change. We wake up real early in Cairo, which is the craziest hustle bustle town in all my travels I've ever been to.
I would agree.
The most riffraff around the pyramids. And we get there early in the morning, and there's no one there.
Yeah.
And we had the unique opportunity that we got to go into the king's chamber for an hour by ourselves.
Yeah.
And you talk about a wild vibe to be quiet in that room. It's like a death vibe, not like a mean one.
No.
But certainly like a solemn, weird vibration, some kind of resonance going through there.
Yeah, and we both have been into meditation and transcendental meditation, that kind of thing. And I remember we were sitting in there, and you started doing almost like a mantra. You were humming, and it was I just got goosebumps thinking about it. It was reverberating in that chamber, and it's like a concentrated earth energy mixed with some spiritual dynasties, thousands of years of.
There was a consciousness to it.
There
Didn't
was.
it feel like a
There was.
consciousness to it.
It was very, very powerful, and I'll never forget that. And and then eventually some people started to trickle in, and I don't think they knew that we were the ones making that noise, and people were kind of looking around. What is that? What is that humming? But that was a special experience for sure.
So check this out. So as we want to leave, we're going to go ahead and head back to the United States. We have to go through our flights. We have to go through Karachi or something, right? And so we had to go. And so we show up, and because we had left, and we left in a hurry, and so our visas had expired by leaving.
They were single entry visas.
They were single entry visas, so we didn't have a visa, and And so we got a problem on our hands, but we have another problem that we hadn't slept in 42 hours or something like that. And in Pakistan at that time, when you get your carts at the airport, and we had between us, we had camera gear. You know, we were going all over. We had like stuff for climbing ice. We had hundreds of pounds of equipment on these big cast iron carts. And I am trashed. And when I'm like that, I am so tired. I am not very aware. And so we have to go after we collect our gear. And there's this wall of glass with a little exit door that's also glass. And I am pushing that cart and I'm looking at the ground, trying to stay awake. And in the middle of the customs and immigration area, I clip the glass door and it comes down like a cascade, like hundreds of thousands of dollars in damage, like the freakiest moment. And we're in Pakistan and I try to play it off like I'm just going to keep walking. And then they're like, "Sir, get back here." And they come and get us. And we were really lucky. There was one sweet-hearted Muslim man that was so compassionate. He came to us and he's like, "Look, you need to get on the next flight out of here.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do something." And he said, "Inshallah, it'll work."
I said, because we were, the plane was about to leave and we're like, how is our bag? What about our bags? And he just goes, "Inshallah," which God willing.
And he took our passports.
Yep.
And he took our passports and we had to trust him, but we had no choice.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden we ended up in India and we were very glad to be there.
Yes.
One other cool thing on that Pakistan trip, I don't know if you remember, we did a driven boar pig hunt. And so this was so Tyler is an excellent guy on the mountain. He is in crazy shape and he's carrying cameras and he goes out and he never gets out of breath. And so we're climbing in the dark early in the mountains and they're telling us that we'll start hearing music and we'll start hearing. So what they got is they got 24 guys, some with drums like the parade, like at a parade. They had guys, a bunch of dogs, the meanest looking dogs, like all scarred up. And they were going to push the bush to drive these hogs to us. They even had a damn flute player.
Yeah.
And so Tyler and I, we are sitting in these bushes, which are kind of like wait-a-bit thorns.
Yep.
And I'd fallen in them and gotten all tangled up, and Tyler had to help me get out. And we see these pigs, and they gave us to shoot a 30-06 that was the original 1906 30-06, and we had to put it together. And I shot 40 shots, and I hit 11 times, which that was an accomplishment. But one of the hogs runs down, and these guys, they had bamboo with rebar sharpened.
Yeah.
And one of these wounded hogs runs down the mountain, and this guy stands in front of it. And he stabs it, and as he does, the pig jumps and knocks him down, and he blasts his head open. And do you remember the size of the bandage they put on him? They put this big white bandage on him. And we found out that they were paying these guys $2 a day. And this guy was really hurt and he was worried he was going to miss out on hunting the next day, but he had a severe head injury. And so I forget what we gave him. We got $100 or something like. We said, "Stay home tomorrow."
Yeah.
And so the next day we're on the mountain in the dark, and as the light just starts a little bit, you could see on the side of a mountain this white object. And that guy, to get that $2 with a head injury, was scaling the side of the mountain in that bandage wrap.
Yeah. And that, honestly, people ask me a lot about traveling and all these trips and experiences. That trip we took to Pakistan, honestly, was one of my favorites of all time. And yeah, sure, it was there was danger, there was adventure, there was hunting, there was culture, but that, particularly when we were in that rural region, some of those people we met were some of the kindest people.
Inviting us in for tea and stuff. And then, so we also This is a very rare, crazy privilege that we got. We got to go to Baluchistan.
Yeah.
And Baluchistan is a semi-autonomous zone that is between Iran and Pakistan, and it's a royal kingdom. And so we were guests of this royal prince, and in that area, people are not allowed education. 50% of all their productivity goes to the royal family. And if you are caught poaching there, they have a hole that's dug that looks like you would dig for a pool, but maybe 2 or 3 times deeper. And the poachers are left there for a month or 2 at a time to bake in the sun. So as you can imagine, the wildlife is as safe as a pig in Palestine there.
Yeah.